In this video, we are going to learn about carbohydrates. In the few upcoming videos, we will be learning about biomolecules and polymers. अगर आप चाहते हैं कि मैं अगले वीडियोस हिंदी में बनाऊं, तो मुझे कमेंट में बताइए. In this video, we will learn about the basics of carbohydrates, some of the properties of carbohydrates, and how we classify them into monosaccharide, oligosaccharide, and polysaccharide. We will also see glucose and fructose. As the name suggests, they are hydrates of carbon, means there is a carbon chain and different number of hydrogen and oxygen atoms are attached to it, because water also contains hydrogen and oxygen atoms. Hydrate means adding water. Carbohydrates are mainly produced by plants by the process of photosynthesis. They produce glucose, which is an important carbohydrate, as we know. So the general formula of carbohydrate is something like this. Now here we can see that it will contain a fixed number of carbon atoms and the number of hydrogen atom will be double to that of oxygen. Or we can say the number of oxygen atoms will be half of hydrogen atoms. But this is not a fixed rule. There can be exceptions to this. For example, in case of ramenose, which is an important carbohydrate, the number of hydrogen atoms will be more than expected. Or we can say the number of oxygen atom is less than expected. There should be 6 oxygen atoms according to the formula, but it is not so. So we can say that it is not a fixed rule. And in case of acetic acid, the formula of acetic acid fits into the general formula of carbohydrate, but it is not a carbohydrate. It has 2 carbon atoms, 2 oxygen atoms, and 4 hydrogen atoms. Now, if that's not the criteria to become carbohydrate, what exactly is carbohydrate? To be a carbohydrate, any of the 2 criteria has to be fulfilled. First criteria is that it should be optically active, polyhydroxy, aldehyde or ketone. It has to be optically active, it has to be polyhydroxy, aldehyde or ketone. It cannot be both, either aldehyde or ketone. Or if it is not following this first criteria, then it should follow the second criteria, that on hydrolysis of that substance we should get something which is optically active, polyhydroxy, aldehyde or ketone. Which means if a substance is not following the first criteria, we will do the hydrolysis of it and then again we will check if now it is following the first criteria or not. Now, what is the meaning of optically active? The meaning of optically active is that if we take that substance in a transparent container and if we pass plane polarized light through that solution, the plane polarized light will be rotated either towards the left or towards the right. If it is rotated towards the left, it will be called levorotatory, and if it is rotated towards the right, it will be called dextrorotatory. So this rotation, left or right, is called optical activity. Now the meaning of polyhydroxy is presence of this group. This is the hydroxyl group. The carbohydrates will have many such hydroxyl groups, and it will have an aldehyde group or a ketone group. So this is an aldehyde group and this is a ketone group. So it can have any of these, either this or this. Now we can see both aldehyde and ketone will have an oxygen atom attached to the carbon atom, but the difference between them is that on aldehyde there is attachment of carbon atom only on one side, but in case of ketone on both sides carbon atoms are attached. So that's the difference. Means aldehyde will be present at one end of the carbon chain while ketone will be present somewhere in between the carbon chain. Now coming to the properties of carbohydrates, they can have one or many saccharide or sugar units. They can have one, they can have 2 or 3 or many. For example, we can see here this is a saccharide unit or sugar unit. This is also a carbohydrate. Now if we join 2 sugar units, it will form a disaccharide. Di means 2, saccharide means sugar, 2 sugar units, and this will also be a carbohydrate. So if we join many such sugar units in a chain, it will form a polysaccharide or oligosaccharide. This is also a carbohydrate. So depending on that, we can call it monosaccharide, disaccharide, trisaccharide or tetrasaccharide. Trisaccharide means 3 sugar units, tetrasaccharide means 4 sugar units, poly means many sugar units. Now these sugar units, they are joined together by glycosidic linkage. This bond which we are seeing in between these sugar units is called glycosidic linkage, and each sugar unit will have its own ketone group or an aldehyde group. And on hydrolysis, this glycosidic linkage will break. Now coming to different carbohydrates, these are examples of some of the carbohydrates. This one in blue is fructose. This is a monosaccharide. This is glucose with red, and in green we have galactose. All these three are monosaccharides. Now coming to disaccharides, the first one is lactose. Lactose is formed by addition of glucose with galactose. So this one is found in milk. This is maltose. If we join two glucose units together, it will form maltose. And sucrose is formed by addition of fructose with glucose. Sucrose is a normal sugar that we get in our homes. Now we can also combine these monosaccharides into long chains. Like we are seeing here, all these are polysaccharides. The difference between this red chain and this red chain is that there is branching in this chain and this chain is straight. If we combine glucose in a straight chain, it will form cellulose, and if we combine them in a branched pattern, it will form glycogen. Now if we combine fructose in long chain, it will form inulin. If we want to convert a polysaccharide into monosaccharide, we will have to do hydrolysis. Just put it in a pressure cooker. What we mean by saying is that we have to boil it in presence of acid at high pressure. We can use acids like sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid. Coming to the classification of carbohydrates, it depends upon what we get on hydrolysis. Suppose further hydrolysis of that carbohydrate is not possible, then it is a monosaccharide. As we all know, it is just one sugar unit, so we cannot break it down further. Now monosaccharides can be aldose or ketose. If it contains aldehyde group, then it is called aldose. If it contains ketone group, then it is called ketose. Now if we are doing hydrolysis and we are getting 2 to 10 sugar units, then we call it oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharide can be disaccharide, trisaccharide, tetrasaccharide. In the same way, it can continue up till 10 sugar units. If it contains more than 10 sugar units, it is called polysaccharide. Now let's see the structure of glucose and fructose. This is one of the structures of glucose and fructose. Like we have seen, Dr. Bruce Banner is Hulk, which means Hulk and Dr. Bruce Banner are the same person, but they have different forms. In the same way, glucose has many other forms, but this is one of the forms of glucose. And the same thing is for fructose. What we can see here is that they have exactly same number of each atoms. But let's see what is the difference. This is an aldehyde group. This is present at one end, and this is a ketone group because it is attached to carbon on both sides. So this is the difference. Fructose is a ketose sugar and glucose is a aldose sugar. Now let's see how we can make glucose. To make glucose, we simply have to do hydrolysis. We have to boil a disaccharide or a polysaccharide which contains glucose. Now as we know, sucrose is made of glucose and fructose. So if we do the hydrolysis of sucrose, we will get glucose and fructose in equal amount. Now at industrial or commercial level, if we want to make glucose, we can use starch. Starch, we will see later that it is a long chain of glucose. Now coming to the other properties of carbohydrate. Carbohydrates that are sweet in taste are called sugars. For example, sucrose, the normal sugar which we get in our homes. And the carbohydrates that are not sweet in taste are called non-sugars. For example, most of the polysaccharides are not sweet in taste, so they are non-sugar. Now carbohydrates that reduce Tollens reagent and Fehling solution, they are called reducing sugars. We will see in later videos what we mean by this. For now, we can remember that all monosaccharides are reducing sugars. Other than these, maltose and lactose, they are disaccharides and they are also reducing sugars. And carbohydrates that do not reduce this Tollens reagent and Fehling solution, they are called non-reducing sugars. Example of non-reducing sugar is sucrose. It is also a disaccharide, but it is a non-reducing sugar. Now there are many more things left to know about carbohydrates, biomolecules and polymers. Don't forget to like this video, and if you have any questions, suggestions or feedback, you can write in comment section. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also share this video with your friends. Thank you.